I'm pregnant. My husband and his mistress pushed me off the yacht, but my comeback shocked everyone. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone. I never thought my life would change in a single moment. I was living what I believed was a dream. Married to a man people envied, living in a world where every day felt like a movie. My mornings were quiet, soft sunlight spilling through the curtains, coffee in hand, the gentle hum of the ocean outside our window. My husband, Julian, was the kind of man who carried himself with power and charm. People admired him. They trusted him. I trusted him. And I trusted him completely. That trust became my entire life, until the day it shattered. I remember that morning so clearly. The sky was the kind of perfect blue that makes you believe anything is possible. I was wearing a light dress, my hair loose, my belly already showing the soft curve of pregnancy. I was radiant. Or at least I thought I was. Julian had arranged something special that day. He said it was to celebrate the baby, the life we were building. I believed him. The yacht was stunning. White, polished, cutting through the water with ease. The air was salty and warm, laughter drifting across the deck. Everything felt like a dream. I should have been happy. I should have been safe. But something was off. I couldn't explain it then. There were moments in the hours before it happened when I felt a strange weight pressing down on my chest. A look between Julian and someone else, a woman. She wasn't just any woman. I would later know her as Vanessa, Julian's mistress. But at that moment, I didn't know. All I saw was the way they spoke quietly, glances stolen, smiles that felt wrong. I tried to shake it off. I told myself I was imagining things. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Then we were at the edge of the yacht. The water sparkled below. I remember leaning against the railing, the wind in my hair, the sound of the waves hitting the hull. Julian stood behind me, close enough that I could feel his breath. But instead of the warmth I expected, there was a chill in his touch. Without warning, something happened that I will never forget. A shove. Sharp, unforgiving. My world tilted. The water rushed up to meet me in seconds, cold and terrifying. My breath caught in my throat. My mind screamed in shock. I was pregnant. I remember clutching my belly instinctively, my knees hitting the deck as I fell. There was screaming. Chaos. People rushing to my side. Julian's voice, Vanessa's voice, shouting over one another, but I couldn't make out the words. My body shook. Not just from fear, but from something deeper. Betrayal. When they finally pulled me up, I was trembling. Tears rolled down my face, salt water mixing with them. I looked at Julian, and for the first time, I didn't see the man I loved. I saw someone I didn't know at all. There was no apology, no concern, only sharp words, excuses, and silence. And then, they left. Vanessa standing there with that same cold smirk, Julian turning away without looking back. I was alone. For the rest of that day, I replayed it in my mind, over and over. What had just happened? Why would someone I trusted, someone I loved, do this to me? Especially now. Especially when I was carrying his child. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized it wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't an accident. That shove had been deliberate. Something inside me shifted that day. The woman who stood on that yacht was gone. In her place was someone who knew she was at war not just with betrayal, but with something much bigger. Something that had been hidden behind whispers and false smiles. That day was the beginning of everything. The moment my world broke, but also the moment I began to fight back. And I didn't know it yet. But what was about to happen would change my life forever. I didn't sleep that night. My bed felt heavy, as if it carried more than my body. My mind was drowning in questions I couldn't answer. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the water rushing toward me, heard Julian's voice fading away, and Vanessa's face the way she looked at him, like she had won something cruel. Morning came, but it didn't bring relief. It brought more silence. Julian wasn't home. My phone was ignored. My messages unanswered. I felt abandoned in a way that cut deeper than the shove on the yacht ever could. By noon, my friends were calling. They had heard what happened. Whispers spread quickly, people talking, rumors spreading, but no one truly knowing the truth. It was as if they were all waiting for me to speak first. But I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I sat on my balcony, staring at the water, replaying every detail. Every smile Julian had given me before that moment. Every glance Vanessa shared with him. They all seemed to mean something different now. My stomach tightened, not from hunger, but from a deep sense of dread. I needed answers. I needed truth. And I knew where I would find them. I called my closest friend, Maria. She was the one person I could trust to listen without judging, without stopping me. When she answered, I didn't even speak at first. I just let the silence speak for me. When I finally told her everything, her voice broke softly over the phone. Alik, you need to be careful. Careful. The word felt strange. Dangerous. I realized then that whatever had happened on the yacht wasn't a random act of cruelty. It was part of something bigger. Something calculated. I decided to confront Julian, not in anger, not in tears, but with clarity. I wanted him to see me, not as the wife he had betrayed, but as someone who refused to be erased. That evening, I went to the yacht. It was strange to be back there. The water looked calm again, almost peaceful. But beneath it, I knew there was a storm I could still feel in my bones. I stepped onto the deck, my heels clicking softly, my heart pounding louder with each step. Julian was there looking at the horizon as if nothing had happened. Vanessa was nowhere to be seen. I wanted to walk away, but my legs moved forward before my mind could stop them. He turned to me then, his eyes cold. Alik, I didn't think you'd come back. I had to, I said softly. But my voice carried strength. I need to understand why. His silence was louder than words. He didn't meet my eyes. Instead, he looked past me, like he was trying to hide something I was desperate to uncover. That's when I noticed papers on the table, hidden behind a folder. I don't know why, but my instincts told me those papers held the answers. Before I could move toward them, Julian stepped closer. His voice was low, almost a whisper. Some truths aren't safe to know. That was when I knew this was no ordinary betrayal. This was something much darker, and I had just stepped into the middle of it. The air felt heavier now, the kind of weight that makes your chest ache. My hands were shaking, not from fear alone, but from the realization that my life, my child, my very world was in danger. I took a deep breath. I have to know, no matter what it costs. Julian's lips tightened. He said nothing, but I could see the truth in his silence. That night, I left the yacht with more questions than answers. My mind raced, replaying every look, every word, every moment. I knew this was only the beginning. What happened on that yacht was not just a betrayal, it was the start of a war I couldn't ignore. I didn't know then that my next steps would lead me into a maze of lies, deception, and danger. I didn't know that Vanessa wasn't the only one involved. I didn't know that Julian had enemies hidden in shadows I couldn't even see yet. But something inside me had changed. The Alec Rose who trusted blindly was gone. In her place stood a woman who would fight not just for herself, but for the truth, and for her child. Because whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to be pushed overboard without a fight. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind felt like a storm waves crashing over memories, questions and fears I couldn't silence. Julian's words kept replaying. Some truths aren't safe to know. But what truth could be dangerous enough to shove me off a yacht while I was pregnant? I needed to find out. The next morning, I began quietly. almost like I was trying not to let the world notice my search. I asked around. People whispered. Some said Julian had enemies, powerful ones. Others warned me to leave it alone, to let it go. But I couldn't. Every fiber of me screamed that this was more than a betrayal. It was a warning. I found myself drawn back to the yacht, the place where everything began. The polished wood still gleamed in the sunlight, the water lapping softly against the hull. But for me, it was no longer beautiful. It was dangerous. I knew I couldn't go back there alone, so I reached out to Maria again. Her eyes widened when I told her what I planned. Alik, this isn't just about him anymore. You don't know what you're walking into. I have to, I said firmly, my voice trembling despite my certainty. I need answers. Together, we went to the marina where the yacht was kept. Julian wasn't there, but the crew knew him well. I watched them carefully, looking for anything unusual. One of them, a young man named Eric, gave me a look, nervous, hesitant. That hesitation told me something I needed to hear. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Something inside me told me he knew more than he was saying. And so, the next day, I went back. Alone. I walked through the marina quietly, careful not to draw attention. When I reached the yacht, I saw Eric sitting on the deck, polishing a section of the railing. He glanced up, startled. I need to know something, I said softly, approaching him. He hesitated. Then, almost in a whisper, he said, "You shouldn't be here." Why? I pressed. Because of what happened, or because of what they're hiding? His eyes darted away. That told me everything. Slowly, he leaned closer. There are papers, files, things about Julian, things about people he works with. You don't want to touch them. But I did. I wanted them more than anything. I needed them. Later that evening, I broke into the yacht's small office. My hands were shaking as I rifled through the folders. Every document felt heavier, like they carried secrets too dangerous to read. My breath caught when I found a file with my name on it, marked in bold letters, Alec Rose, Asset Risk. Inside, there were photographs, notes, bank transactions. Everything pointed to something much larger than a personal betrayal. Julian wasn't just having an affair. He was protecting something, or someone, and I was a part of it without even knowing it. The weight of it hit me hard. My chest felt tight. I was dizzy. I closed my eyes, trying to breathe. The truth was beginning to form, but it was terrifying. I was in the middle of something I didn't understand, something that had cost people their lives before me. When I opened my eyes again, Eric was standing there. His face was pale. "You need to leave," he said quietly. "They know you're looking." I froze. They know. That phrase cut deeper than anything Julian had ever done. I left the yacht that night with the folder clutched to my chest, my mind swirling with fear and questions. The world felt different now, darker, more dangerous. I knew I was no longer the same Alec Rose who had been shoved overboard. That woman was gone. Now, I was someone who had begun to see the truth, and it terrified me. I didn't know who to trust anymore. Julian, of course, was the first name that came to mind. But the deeper I dug, the more I realized the danger wasn't just with him, Vanessa. The crew. People I'd never even met. They all seemed tied to something I couldn't name yet. That night, I lay in bed holding the folder, staring at the ceiling. My belly felt heavy, not just with life, but with the weight of what was coming. I whispered to myself, I have to finish this. I can't stop now. I didn't know it yet, but this was my choice, my war, my battle. The next morning, I woke up with one thought. I needed to confront Julian. I needed answers. But what I didn't know was that confronting him would pull me deeper into a dangerous game where the stakes were higher than I could imagine. And whatever happened next, I would never be the same again. The morning air felt heavy, almost as if it knew what I was about to do. I kept the folder hidden in my bag, but I could feel its weight with every step. I knew Julian would notice if I confronted him without proof. This wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was survival. When I found him at his office that day, he didn't look surprised to see me. But there was something in his eyes, a coldness, like he had been expecting this moment all along. "I know you've been digging," he said without preamble, his voice calm but sharp. "I warned you, you're in danger, Alec." I stepped closer, holding my bag tightly. "You pushed me overboard. You betrayed me. And now I have proof. I want answers." Julian's lips tightened. "Do you even understand what you're holding? This isn't a game. These people aren't just powerful, they're dangerous. And now they're watching you." Something about his words chilled me more than the memory of falling into the water. I swallowed hard. "Then tell me what this is about." He sighed, as if the weight of years rested on his shoulders. "It's bigger than anything you or I could imagine. But once you know, you can't walk away." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "Then tell me. I need to know." He looked away, then back at me with an intensity that made me shiver. "If you want answers, you need to be ready. Once you step deeper, there's no going back." I nodded. "I'm ready." That evening, Julian led me to a private room, no cameras, no witnesses. He pulled out a laptop, sliding it across the table. On the screen were emails, contracts, pictures, everything connected to what I had found in the folder. But there was one file that made me freeze, a video. It showed me. It wasn't just me. It was that day. Footage from a camera on the yacht, showing every moment before I was pushed. Julian, Vanessa, and another man I didn't recognize were in the frame. They were talking quietly, their faces tense, and then, without warning, Julian grabbed my arm. I could see myself struggling, gasping for air before the push. I couldn't breathe. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you need to see it for yourself," Julian said quietly. "You're part of something much bigger. They wanted to silence you before you could find out." My hands shook. Who? Who are they?" Julian didn't answer. Instead, he closed the laptop and looked at me with a strange expression, half regret, half warning. "You have two choices, Alec. Forget this and disappear, or follow it to the end. But if you choose the second, there's no turning back. They'll come after you, and they won't stop." I felt my stomach knot. Every instinct screamed for me to walk away. But something inside me refused to let go. This wasn't just about me anymore, it was about truth, justice, and something I couldn't explain. "I'll do it," I whispered. Julian nodded slowly. "Then, prepare yourself. Because what comes next will change your life forever." That night, I couldn't sleep again. Every sound felt sharper, the hum of the street lights outside my window, the creak of the floorboards, the distant bark of a dog. I kept replaying the video in my head. The look on Julian's face, Vanessa's cold smirk, and the fact that someone wanted me gone. I knew then that I had crossed a line. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a player in something I barely understood, and the rules were deadly. The next day, I began my own investigation. I traced names from the folder, followed leads Julian had shown me, and watched my back every step of the way. But the deeper I went, the more dangerous it became. Every conversation, every clue brought more questions than answers. One evening, as I walked home, I noticed a car parked nearby. Its engine was silent, but the windows were darkened. My heart started racing. I quickened my pace. The moment I turned a corner, I felt a hand brush against my arm. I spun around. No one was there. But I knew I wasn't alone. From that moment, every shadow felt like a threat. Every glance over my shoulder was filled with fear. I knew they were watching me, watching my every move. That night, I opened the folder again. The documents, the photos, the emails, they painted a picture of something much larger than Julian's betrayal. This was about power, control, and people who would kill to keep their secrets hidden. I clenched my fists, feeling something shift inside me. I was no longer the same Alec Rose who had been pushed overboard. That girl had died that night. This new version of me, angry, determined, afraid, was ready to fight. And I knew exactly where I had to go next. Julian had given me the choice, and I had chosen the path that would lead to the truth. But I also knew that the closer I got to it, the closer I was to danger, and there was no turning back. I still remember the night it all came crashing down. I wasn't scared. Not at first. I was more certain. Certain that I had to see this through, no matter the cost. Julian had given me pieces of the truth, but there was one final step, and I knew it would be dangerous. I arranged to meet him again. The location was abandoned, a warehouse by the docks. The smell of salt water mixed with rust, and the sound of distant waves made every step I took feel heavier. I clutched the folder like it was a lifeline. My phone was off. No calls, no tracking. I couldn't risk them knowing where I was. Julian was already there when I arrived. He didn't speak. He just motioned for me to follow him deeper inside. The air was thick, and every creak of the floorboards echoed like a warning. Then he stopped. "They're here," he whispered. "They've been watching us this whole time." I felt my breath catch. My heart pounded in my chest, not from fear, but from the rush of knowing this was the moment of truth. He opened the folder, laying all the documents and videos out on a table. But the most important file was a new one, something he hadn't shown me before. It was a recording of a meeting, the people involved, the orders given, the names of the powerful, the wealthy, the untouchable. And right there in the middle of it was Julian's name too. His betrayal stung more than the push into the ocean. But so did the truth, because it wasn't just about him. It was about something much darker. Suddenly, footsteps. Heavy, quick, closing in. Julian's eyes widened. "They know we're here." We didn't have time to react. The door slammed open. Figures stepped in, shadows moving with precision. My body froze. Julian grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the back exit. My mind raced. Should I run? Should I fight? But every instinct told me this was the defining moment of my life. We ran through corridors filled with dust and silence. Behind us, voices shouted. A shot rang out. My ears rang. My heart was pounding so loud I thought they'd hear it. We burst out into the cold night air. The smell of salt hit me again. We were at the edge of the docks. The water shimmered under faint light. Julian stopped. "This is it," he said. "The truth is here, Alisic. But so is your choice. You can walk away now, or you can take it all the way." I looked at him. My voice trembled, but I said it anyway. "I'm not walking away." He nodded once, almost sadly, before disappearing into the shadows. Alone, I stepped forward toward the edge. I pulled my phone from my bag, but I didn't call anyone. Instead, I streamed the folder, the videos, the documents, live. The truth flooded the world in real time. My voice shook as I told everything. My story, their story, the betrayal, the injustice, the corruption. Somewhere in the distance, sirens screamed. But I didn't turn away. I stayed until my phone died, until my hands shook so badly they couldn't hold it anymore. I knew what I had done would change me forever. The next days were chaos. The names in that folder began making headlines. The powerful trembled. People were talking, protesting. And somehow, my voice, the voice of Alec Rose, had become part of something bigger. I was no longer just a victim. I was someone who had stood up. Even though I didn't know if I'd made the right choice, I knew I couldn't live with silence. But here's what keeps me awake at night. The knowledge that they will never stop. That no matter how much truth comes out, those who thrive in the shadows will always fight to remain unseen. So I ask you now, whoever is listening, what would you do if your life was taken, your truth stolen, your voice silenced? Would you stay silent, or would you fight even if it meant risking everything? Because truth is dangerous, but silence is even more dangerous. and I chose not to be silent. This is my story. My name is Alec Rose, and this is only the beginning.